Hello students, I hope you all good and safe. Bible says, happy is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. It means no precious jewels or earthly treasures are worthy to be compared with true wisdom, whether the concerns of time or eternity be considered. We must make wisdom our business. We must venture all in it and be willing a part with all for it. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay strong. God will always be with us. With this thought, I am going to start today's class. This video is the continuation of 9th ICSE Computer Applications Lesson 1 Object Oriented Programming Language. In my previous video, you learned about Introduction of Object Oriented Programming Language and Evaluation of Software. In this video, I am going to teach about programming paradigms. In my next video, you can learn about basic concepts of Object Oriented Programming Language, advantages and disadvantages of Object Oriented Programming Language. Before we could get into this lesson, let us recall the last class. In last class, you learned about programming language generation. The first one is first generation language. These are low-level languages like machine language. The main benefit of programming in the first generation programming language is that code a user writes can run very fast and efficiently since it is directly executed by the CPU. So this first generation programming language consists only zeros and ones because machine can understand only zeros and ones. That's why this type of language are called as machine oriented language. The second one is second generation languages. These are low level assembly languages used in kernels and hardware drives. Unlike first generation programming languages, it can actually be read and written fairly easily by the human as it uses mnemonics to specify instructions. And next one is third generation languages. These are high level languages like C, C++, Java, Visual Basic and JavaScript. A third generation language is a programming language designed to be easier for a human to understand using normal languages. Example, Basic, C, C++ and Java. Now let's see next one. Fourth generation languages. These are languages that consist of statements that are similar to statements in the human language. These are used mainly in database programming and scripting. Example of these languages include Perl, Python, Ruby, SQL, MATLAB. MATLAB full form is Matrix Laboratory. So, 4GL or fourth generation language is designed to be closer to natural language than a third generation language. 4GLs are non-procedural in nature, which one you learned already. And next one is fifth generation programming language. These are the programming languages that have visual tools to develop a program. Examples of fifth generation language include Mercury, OPS5 and Prolog. We can discuss about this deeply. A fifth generation programming language is a programming language based around solving problems using constraints entered by the programmer. Constraints means conditions which the computer uses to solve the given problem. The main difference between fourth generation language and fifth generation languages is fourth generation language are designed to build specific programs while fifth generation language are designed to make the computer solve the problem for you. This way the programmer only needs to worry about what problems needs to be solved and what conditions need to be met without worrying about how to implement a routine or algorithm to solve them. So, the fifth generation languages are used only in artificial intelligence research. Example, Prolog, OPS 5 and Mercury. So this is about fifth generation language. Now let's get into the new topic, programming paradigms. First we will see what is a paradigm. Paradigm means organizing principle of a program. It is an approach to programming. It means a way of thinking or doing things. Paradigm means what? Paradigm means a way of thinking or doing things. Since the invention of the computer, many programming approaches have been tried, such as procedural programming, modular programming, and structural programming. The primary invention in each case has been the concern to handle the increasing complexity of programs that are reliable and maintainable. Let us discuss these different programming paradigms and key language mechanisms necessary for supporting them. Now let's see about procedural or modular programming. A program in a procedural language is a list of instructions where each statement tells the computer to do something. The algorithm needed to perform the desired computation. Already we know paradigm means a way of thinking or doing things, but in procedural paradigm the emphasis is on doing things and not on data. What happens to the data? Data is after all the reason for the paradigm's existence. The important part of one inventory program isn't function that displays or checks data. Let's see one real-time example. Procedural programming does not model real world very well. For instance, a vehicle is an object which is capable of moving in real world. However, the procedural programming paradigm would just be concerned about procedure. The procedure programming paradigm would just think of moving part and not the vehicle. So, see the difference between real world interpretation of vehicle and procedural programming's interpretation of the same vehicle. Next one is modular programming is an extension of procedural programming. In modular programming, a big program is divided into small parts. It's known as modules. See here, all programs divided into small modules. So the big program, large program is divided into small programs, that is known as modules. A module can be thought of as a black box. So the modules used to time consuming. This is also thought as black box. What is a black box? Black box is a set of inputs and outputs. It has a sole purpose and processes its input is a way dictated by its goal and provided some outputs. In most cases, the actual operation of the black box should be invisible to the rest of the program. So, the module is an identifiable piece of code within a program with a set of inputs and outputs. It has a sole purpose and processes its input in a way dictated by its goal and provides some outputs. So, this is about procedural and modular programming languages. Now, let's see the advantages and disadvantages of procedural and modular programming. First, we will see the advantages of procedural and modular programming. The first one is it avoids duplication of code. It means it avoids a reuse of code. Never reuse code by copying and pasting existing code fragments. Second one is modularity. It means we can divide our programs into small code snippets. Snippets means pieces that are easier to understand and modify. And third one is correctness and reusability. It means once we implement and test our procedures, they will produce correct result every time we call them. And so we can now use these procedures over and over again in different programs. For example, printf, scanf, getchar and putchar. Now we will see the disadvantages of procedural and modular programming language. First one is unrestricted access. It means functions have unrestricted access to global data. So no need to access with password. That is called unrestricted and no rules for this. And next one is real world modeling. Unrelated, it means separated functions and data, the basis of the procedural paradigm, provide a poor model of the real world, because already we know it does not model real world very well. So that concept here. Next one is complex real world objects have both attributes. Attributes means data and behavior. Behavior means function. So this is about the advantages and disadvantages of procedural and modular programming. After procedural programming, let us talk about object-oriented programming. The object-oriented approach views a problem in terms of objects involved rather than procedures for doing it. What is an object? Object is an identifiable entity with some characteristics and behavior. For instance, we can say orange is an object. Its characteristics are it is spherical shaped, its color is orange, and its behavior is it is juicy and it tastes sweet sour. So the characteristics of orange is shape and color, and the behavior of orange is taste. While programming using object-oriented programming approach, the characteristics of an object are represented by its data. So the characteristics of orange is shape and color. This shape and color are represented by its data, and its behavior is represented by its associated functions. So the behavior of orange is taste. This taste is represented by its associated functions. Therefore, in object-oriented programming, object represents an entity that can store data and has its interface through functions. To understand this concept more clearly, let us consider an example. Simulate traffic flow at a red light crossing. As you know, procedural programming paradigm focuses on the procedures or the working action using procedural programming paradigm. The above said problem will be viewed in terms of working happening in the traffic flow, moving, halting, turning, etc. The object-oriented programming paradigm, however, aims at the objects and their interface. In the above example, cars have been identified as objects. They have characteristics like steering wheel, seats and motor, brakes, etc. and their behavior is their mobility. Car however is not an object, it is a class. Car is a class, and Camry, Camora, Benz, Caprice, Sonata, these all called as objects. So object is an instance of a class. The another example, we can say bird is a class. We can say bird is a class, and parrot. Parrot is a object. Likewise, dove also object and peacock also object. So bird is a base class. These all objects are comes under the bird. Okay, so bird like a family. Under this family we can see different birds. So parrot is object 1, dove is object 2, and peacock is object 3. These all objects comes under one base class, that is bird. So the bird is a class and parrot is object, dove is object, and peacock also object. Now let's see what is a class. A class is a template or blueprint representing a group of objects that shares common properties and relationships. Already we know the characteristics and behavior. The characteristics are also known as properties and the behavior are also known as relationships. So the characteristics like shape, color, and the behavior like juicy, taste. So this characteristics are called as properties and behavior is called as relationship. So the class is a template blueprint representing a group of objects that shares common properties and relationships. So class is a student. This student having some common properties and relationships inside. The properties are name, roll number, and the relationships are set name, set roll number. Okay, so this structure is called blueprint. So class is a template or blueprint and it's representing a group of objects. See here, it representing a group of objects: Nancy, James, Goldie, Cabby. These all considered as a object. So these all objects comes under one family, that is student. Okay, from this they can access some common properties and they can access some common behaviors. So class is a blueprint and it's representing some group of objects that shares some common properties like name, roll number, and relationships like set name, set roll number. So this is about class. Now let's see what is an object. An object is an actual entity which is an instance of a class. So object is a instance of a class. Now let's see the difference between object and class. Class is a data type, but object is an instance of class. Class generates objects, but objects gives life to class because object is an instance of a class. And class does not occupy memory location. Object occupies memory location. Class cannot be manipulated because it is not available in memory. Object can be manipulated because it is available in memory. So this is the difference between class and object. Now let's see the difference between structured and object oriented programming. Structured are also known as procedural programming language. The first difference is top down approach is followed. Here bottom up approach is followed. What is mean by top down and bottom up? First we will see about top down. Top down approach focuses on breaking down a big problem into smaller and understandable chunks. See, this top down approach breaking the larger programs into smaller programs and then it's convert into the understandable chunks. But bottom up approach focuses on solving the smaller problems at the fundamental level and then integrating them into a whole and a complete solution. So bottom up approach focuses on solving the smaller problems at the fundamental level. So this one focuses on the larger problems, this one focuses on the smaller problems. So this is a difference between top down approach and bottom up approach. The second one is program is divided into a number of sub modules or functions or procedures. Here program is organized by having the number of classes and objects. Third one is function call is used. Here message passing is used. Software reuse is not possible. Here helps in software reuse. No encapsulation. Data and functions are separate. Data and functionalities are put together in a single entity. So this is the difference between procedural oriented programming and object oriented programming language. In this video you learned what is programming paradigms and what is procedural or modular programming and advantages and disadvantages of procedural or modular programming. We learned object oriented programming language with the example, and we learned the examples for objects and class. This one is another example for class and objects, and we learned about the definition of class and the definition of objects and the difference between class and objects. Then we learned about difference between structured and object oriented programming language. Now let's see some recapitulation questions. First question is, what do you understand by procedural programming paradigm? The answer is the programming approach that focuses on the procedures for the solution of a problem is known as procedural programming paradigm. This approach emphasizes on the doing rather than the data. Second question is, how is model programming approach different from procedural programming approach? The answer is, in modular programming, a set of related procedures with the data they manipulate is combined under a unit called module. Where there is no grouping of procedures with related data, the procedural programming approach still applies. Third question is, what is the difference between an object and a class? Class is a data type, object is an instance of a class. It generates objects, it gives life to class, does not occupy memory location, it occupies memory location. It cannot be manipulated because it is not available in memory, it can be manipulated. Next question is, write two major differences between object oriented programming and procedural programming. So you can write any two difference in this. You should copy down these 4 question answers in your practice notes and submit the photocopy of your practice note to this website classroom.google.com or download Google Classroom from Play Store. Click join class and type class code UY64ZIG and click join. Last week many of them submitted their classwork through Google Classroom. I really appreciate your hard work. Some of them submitted through WhatsApp. They said they couldn't access Google Classroom. No problem. Next time try to log in Google Classroom. But some of them didn't bother about classroom submission. If you continue the same means, I will mention the incomplete names in my next video. To avoid this, do response. If any difficulty you facing regarding submitting the classwork, you can contact me. I will help you with excuses. See here. I have attached a list of names who submitted on time through Google Classroom and WhatsApp. I can see some students' names: Fahim, Gautam, then Ashif, Nifan, Nimiksha, Sushil, Sabina, Vinnarasu, David Princeton, Uday, Vishal. I can find out the students here, but many of them used their parents' name and some of them used their nickname Lilyflowers like. Kindly change your Google Classroom profile name into your name, student name. Then only I can find out. Okay. If you can't change your profile name means whenever you submit your classwork in the Google Classroom, kindly mention your name in the private comment box. Okay, try to change your profile name into your name. Otherwise, whenever you submit the classwork in the Google Classroom, kindly mention your name in the private comment box. Okay, this is my request. 3 of them submitted through WhatsApp. Next time, try to submit in the Google Classroom. I hope you will follow all the instructions I have mentioned here. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay strong. Thank you, students.